Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Continuing with that kind of 70s motif of things that, my experience with different pop culture stuff. We're going to go back, we're going to talk about Spider-Man now. I did the Batman one, which I have a couple of amendments that I'll put in this video, but I'll primarily focus on Spider-Man. Like Batman, Spider-Man was huge in the 70s. I mean, it still is. He still is. But just the sheer amount of just stuff that was out then. I mean, sure, I would say pound for pound, if you were to take every piece of Spider-Man merchandise now, or maybe in the 2000s or even in the 90s, I would say there wasn't as much. So there's more has been produced since the 70s. However, 70s was huge. And it's funny, though, because if you think about it, and it's weird, the focus was so heavily on, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man in the 80s, and then, to some extent, early with Star Wars and whatnot, that Spider-Man, Batman, Star Trek, until the Next Generation, with some more of it. A lot of those properties that were huge in the 70s, they kind of fell by the wayside in the 80s. Obviously there was the Spider-Man comic book, which was hugely popular amongst comic book fans, but maybe not so much the mainstream. Same thing with Batman, with the Dark Knight. And then, Superpowers, I guess, in Superpowers and Secret Wars was really the only real for an entire decade, was really the only Spider-Man superhero stuff that was really out. So heavily, overshadowed by G.I. Joe, the big three, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and He-Man. Superhero stuff really, even though it was huge, it really, didn't even come close to how big that stuff was in the 70s. And a lot of it largely was due to just a few key companies. Mego being a huge proprietor of Mego, Remco, Corgi. Those are pretty much the three tops, I think. And I'm pretty sure Remco put out most of the Rack toys. I'm not 100% certain on that. But Rack toys, and of course, is Artie Friedman? Yeah, the guy from Mego. He says in The Toys That Made Us, when you're talking about the Star Trek toys, was they didn't have a lot of product to put out, so they would label slap. And the 70s was all about the label slapping. Everything you could possibly get your hands on, flashlights. They had like a few key toys, and I'll show you some of them, that basically just print them all with and some of them they had to mold, obviously, like if it was a Batman, Spider-Man, like the parachute guys. I'll show you a picture of that. They had to mold them, to resculpt them slightly, but it was essentially the same mold, or the same sculpt, just kind of tweaked it a little bit. So, they would just label slap everything. And, as much as I bitch and complain about repaints today, I don't know which one's worse, really. The thing was, though, even though it was crazy, all the label slapping going on back then with all the different products, the stuff was all cheap, comparatively. And it was cheap throwaway garbage, that your parents would buy to make you happy. And the thing was, nowadays, all the repaints and all the different, ways to take as little, product as possible and spread it out and make the most profit. The thing is, all the prices are just astronomical, as they weren't like that back in the days. And you can see some of the price tags and some of the things they'll show you, just how cheap things were. Sure, it was the 70s, so obviously a dollar didn't go, a dollar was a lot of money back then, $1. I think $1 in the 70s was probably like $10, almost $10. Nah, maybe not that high. You got to figure cost of inflation, but really, if you bought it's well, so, like I said, it's so weird when I think about it. How a Matchbox car or a Hot Wheels car was 99 cents. At the time here in Michigan, our sales tax was 4%, not 6 like it is now, which has been that way for a while, but 4%. So, and if you wanted to buy a Hot Wheels or Matchbox car, you needed $1.03. Today, now I haven't checked in a while, but last time, within like the last couple of years, I remember looking at the shelves, and all of the, like at Meijer, all of the Hot Wheels cars were $1. It's like they haven't changed in over 40, almost 50 years, the price. There's probably something going on with that. I don't know what maybe that was like if that's their selling point. I don't know, but it's just odd how inexpensive they still are today. Whereas opposed to like, you get an action figure, Star Wars, when Star Wars figures first came out, they were like $1.79, I think, and then they eventually went up to $3 right around Jedi. But when the first Star Wars came out, $1.79, for a 3 3/4 figure, you could get those big dolls, those 12-inch ones. I think those were like $8 or $9. I know they were expensive for the time, but $8 or $9. A Star Wars doll today, 12-inch. I mean, even go back in the 90s, that Power of the Force 2, that stuff was still like $25, $30 for one of those. Nowadays, you're talking like $100. But let's stick to Spider-Man here. So let's get into it. I gotta show you something that's funny too in there. But let's get into I did a little bit better job to clean up my file folder with all my images, and I kind of blew them up as best as I could so you could see them better. So a little bit better presentation. I thought about making a PowerPoint, but I don't know if I actually have PowerPoint because I don't have Microsoft Office on my computer. I don't know if I have a PowerPoint. I'm sure you can get a cheap PowerPoint clone, or a free one offline, but I was thinking about doing a PowerPoint instead. That might be better. Let me know in the comments if you'd rather see PowerPoints, because it doesn't really, it takes for me a little bit of time to prep, but it seems like it's more streamlined. Like if I use like the same templates for PowerPoints and just plug in the different new images, it might work a little better. I'm not sure. I'll try that. So that's big enough, isn't it? I don't need to. All these should fill up this whole window here. I kind of want to keep this kind of small to the side. But so first off, these aren't in any order, so I may be jumping around, but sorry, it's that time of day. So let's look at Spider-Man in the 70s. However, this is the 60s cartoon. So this is pretty much where it started for most of us in the 70s. I wasn't alive in 67. I was born in 73. So, all of this side stuff I would get as reruns or in syndication. Star Trek, reruns and syndication, Batman, everything from the 60s was on the UHF stations in syndication, either after school, sometimes prime time, sometimes in the morning, all through syndication. So I don't know how many times I'm going to say the word syndication, but anyways, Spider-Man the cartoon. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's pretty rough. However, as rough as it is, I really like it. I still like it to this day. I can't sit and watch more than a couple of episodes, at a time, maybe even one episode at a time. But I really liked it. It has that catchy, just like the Batman with the da 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 da. This one had that, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. In the gleam of the night, he arrives just in time. That whole, he's got radioactive blood. That jingle, they're all about the jingle back then, and I really liked the jingle. It just was part of it. They would do that like zoom in thing. Really basically just trying to put as many bells and whistles on limited animation as possible. Now, it's not as bad as like that the same time period Marvel stuff, where it's just like a drawing but the mouth's moving. Like the Submariner and, Tony Stark's the coolest guy. That one with the Iron Man. He fights with his repulsor rays, or Captain America throws his mighty shield. Sorry, spare my singing. But anyways, this actually was better than those. It was, and that's probably why it got the most money put into it, and it was Marvel's hottest property. You know, outside of Captain America, outside of Iron Man, the Hulk, Submariner, Thor, all of those old cartoons, they really put the money into this show, and you can tell because it was literal animation. I mean, it's got great, and it's got a certain quality to it. Most people, modern people, like, they can't stand this, but I love this because, and here's the thing, I'm going on a little rant real quick. All of the people, I know, I get it. You're young, you're 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, 30 years younger than me. I get it. You've grown up with the internet. You've grown up, well, maybe not the millennials, but I mean, you've grown up with the internet most of your life. People that are younger than I am. You've grown up with anime. You've grown up with HD televisions. You've grown up with, you know, whatever. You got to realize, back in the 70s, I mean, there's a picture from this one movie I'm going to show you in here where the kid's sitting in front of a television. That's exactly what it looked like when I was a kid. It's not a picture of me, but it's pretty close. Actually, I got a picture I could dig out and show you me in that living room with a very similar TV. But you got to realize, all this stuff, the color, you know, the art, all of it, it was captivating as a kid. And the thing is, we had such overactive, and I still have an overactive imagination, because you had to fill in the gaps. I mean, imagine it like this in animation terms. All of the stuff that they presented to you, whether it was a figure, whether it was a doll, whether it was a, you know, whatever, just anything, right? Imagine those as keyframes in animation, right? Your imagination had to do the grunt work. It had to fill in all the animation cells up to that keyframe. Does that make sense? So, you know, you had to use your imagination. Like I said, your mom's flowery, you know, floral towel with a safety pin or a clothespin around your neck, that was your Batman cape. And to you, it was your Batman cape. You know, wasn't blue or black or dark colors, and it looked nothing like it. But just in your mind, I have a towel on my neck that looks like a cape, therefore it's a cape. And your imagination would basically be like imagine like a filter. Like, here's a good way to explain it. So you looked at a figure, right? As bad as it looked, or as limited articulation, which is funny, because back in the 70s, there weren't a lot of limited articulation. A lot of those dolls had a lot of articulation. And they covered up the seams by putting soft goods and fabric costumes over them, which is an ingenious idea. But the thing is, imagine whatever you're looking at, your floral towel is a Batman cape. Basically, your imagination was like a filter, like rose-colored goggles, or, you know, special, you know, glasses that you put on, and then your brain would register as an all HD Technicolor Dreamcoat. Exactly, you know, you've got Batman's flowing cape. You know what I mean? So that's how it happened back then, and you know, you had no choice. I mean, you didn't know you didn't know the wiser. Like maybe adults who, like I said, adults weren't, back in the day, adults weren't man-children like they are today. My dad, you know, he was in his, you know, in 73, the year I was born, my dad was 30, right? He didn't like any of this shit. He thought it was all stupid. I mean, he liked Lone Ranger and stuff when he was a kid, but he didn't like it that much. I mean, he'd watch it in reruns, but he wasn't, like, running around the house, or he wasn't, you know, having glass cases of Lone Ranger paraphernalia in the house. I mean, you could, you know. So adults were different back in the 70s. They were too busy, you know, getting drunk and having promiscuous sex and disco dancing, and playing cards, bridge, and pinochle, and other card games, and drinking fuzzy navels at neighbors' houses, smoking a lot of cigarettes. Yeah, I mean, that was what you did. You know, that's what. So, anyways, so let's get back into. So I didn't grab. I mean, there's just limited pictures of these, but this is a classic shot of him with, you know, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He had the camera because, you know, he was taking pictures for the Daily Bugle. Here's the other thing about the Spider-Man cartoon, and this, to some extent, goes pretty much to everything you'll see here that's Peter Parker related. And this is the biggest grievance I have with modern interpretations of Spider-Man is when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, right? Peter Parker to me was an adult. He was a younger-ish, but he was still an adult, right? He wasn't like J. Jonah Jameson old, but he was younger than your dad, but he was older than a teenager, like my sister, you know, at the time, who was in junior high, or even into high school. He was an adult. He worked at the Daily Bugle, taking pictures. You know, he was dating Betty Brant. She was an adult. To me, Spider-Man was an adult. Batman was an adult. Anybody, I didn't like, I said this before in other videos, I didn't like kid characters. Kid characters bothered me. I didn't mind seeing a kid character in live action that was not related to one of these properties. You know, then you could relate, like in the one movie I'm going to talk about, you could relate to the kid. But the heroes, the larger-than-life characters that you'd see, I didn't want to see them as kids. And this whole perpetual thing where it's like they're constantly keeping, it's either Peter Parker or Miles Morales or whoever, or, you know, Gwen Stacy for Spider-Gwen, they're perpetually keeping them as high schools, as teenagers. And it's just like, get over that. Can't we have them as, young adults? You know, although arguably, you know, a 25-year-old today still acts like a 13-year-old. But, you know, back then, I mean, they went out and they'd go out and do things. Think of like Stranger Things. You know, like after the brother and sister graduate, you know, and what's his face, Steve, they graduate from high school, right? Then they start going into their early adulthood lives, working jobs. I mean, you're in your 20s, you know, you're 19, 20, 21, 22, college age, right? That's what I always envisioned Spider-Man as, because that's what he was in the show. You know, he was graduated high school, he worked for the Daily Bugle, and he was Spider-Man at night. I mean, it was pretty simple. So, I know I keep talking about that, but, you know, to me, that's why one of the reasons I do not like modern-day interpretations of these superheroes. I don't want to see them as teenagers. I want to see them as young adults or just adults. So, you know, there's the other classic where he's swinging by and he's waving at you. If you get a chance, I think it might be on Disney Plus. I'm not sure. They might have taken this off Disney Plus because it's not Disney politically correct. It's too, you know, old and too old time. You know, I don't think J. Jonah Jameson smacks Betty Brant in the butt. At least I don't think he does. It'd be nice if he did, but I don't think he does. But that might have happened. But I mean, it was the 60s. So, okay, so fast forward into the 70s, right? Obviously, the first place to start would be going to the Mego doll. I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to talk about is the Mego doll. So, I had the Mego. I had a few Spider-Mans. I just thought of this when I was looking at these pictures. I remember this weird incident where, like, I go to my grandma's house, and in her kitchen, and I go, I said, I need to find something. I don't know what it was, like a tape, mass Scotch tape or something, or scissors. And her drawers are always these old wooden drawers you could barely get out. They're all just packed with just junk, right? And I pull out, and it's like, out pops Spider-Man's clothes, his little costume, all wadded up in a ball in like the corner of the drawer, and I'm like, even as a kid, I was like, is that from one of my toys? Did I do that? My grandma do that? How'd that get in there? That was just so weird. I always thought that was weird. Anyways, so yeah, I had Spider-Man. Like I said, I had a few of them. Funny enough, this would have been like 89 or I think it was like 1989. My dad and me were at a comic shop over on Garfield there in Clinton Township. And my dad was planning on trying to open up a store, and he was talking to the owner there. And I had just stopped at Children's Palace, which is Child World. And they had a bunch of Mego Spider-Man dolls, a lot of them, like a whole, not an end cap, but a whole like section of Spider-Man dolls for 99 cents in 1989. And they were like, they couldn't move them. I bought like 5 of them. I was like, Dad, can I get like 5 of them? I said, these things will be worth something. And he was like, I guess. So I got them. And when we went to that comic shop, they were out in the car, and I said to the guy we were talking to, I said, hey, would you be interested in buying a Spider-Man Mego doll? And he's like, oh, you got one? I said, yeah. And I go out to the car, and I just bring in one. And I go, yeah, I got one right here. How much did you give me for it? And he goes, I'll give you $5 for it. And thinking like, oh, I'm going to turn around and sell it for $20, $25 back in 1989. And I was like, okay. So they gave me $5 for it. And then I goes, yeah, you come along and need this stuff. Bring it in. I'll buy it off you. I said, okay. And I never brought any more into the guy. I don't know what happened to all the remaining 4. I know opened one, I kept a couple of them in the package. I think he gave one to somebody. But yeah, it was just weird. Just a weird thing to run into. It was like, wow, that was odd. And they had to have been holdovers from the 70s at Children's Palace, because there was a lot of toy stores that would do that. They would like, they'd have to go through and clean out their storerooms, or they get a shipment or something. Stuff comes from their main warehouse, and they just merchandise the stuff. How old's this stuff? Yeah, this stuff's been in boxes for years, right? It's like all vintage stuff, but again, nobody knew what the word vintage was back then. And they would just put the stuff on the shelf. But I had all 3 of the Spider-Man. I mean, I had most of the Marvel dolls, not all of them. I didn't have Thor. I didn't actually have a Sue Storm either. I realized it. I thought I had all of the Fantastic Four. No, I didn't have Sue Storm. And then, of course, I had Lizard. Now, because of the cartoon and because of these dolls, I couldn't make up my mind which one I liked more. Did I like Green Goblin or did I like the Lizard? I still say to this day, Green Goblin was still my favorite of the Spider-Man villains. But Lizard was just so cool. I know he was essentially the Gorn figure from the Star Trek line, but he was pretty cool. I always thought it looked neat with the little tail and everything. And of course, I never had it, and I never really wanted it. I mean, I guess I kind of wanted it, but I didn't. I never had the amazing spider car for the Mego dolls. I just thought that was weird. Although I did have let's get to it. I did have a smaller version of it. So those were the Mego dolls. Now, here's the other thing. Now, this is that 12-inch doll I was telling you about. So Mego, they had it carded as well, but I remember mine was in the box. I had the 12-inch Spider-Man doll right there. It says 12.5 inches, actually. He doesn't have the magnetic hands. Now, Mego is the company that put out the magnetized dolls, 12-inch dolls, and I could not find a magnetized Spider-Man, so I'm assuming that he didn't exist. I never had him anyways, but I did have the Batman. And they did make a Robin. I think they made a Superman, too. I didn't have the Robin, didn't have the Superman, but I did have just the Batman. I had the Batman Robin Mego dolls, but I only had the magnetized Batman. And then, of course, but I did have the 12-inch Batman and Robin Mego dolls. But I had the Spider-Man doll. And it's funny, put a pin in this one, remember that, because when it comes to, well, I guess right now we'll do it since here it is. So, I just want to pull this up also, kind of funny. So I was online and I saw this. Kinder trauma. Your happy childhood ends here. I think it was hilarious. Name that trauma. Reader Doug on Scorched Spider-Man. So it's not just me and my craziness. This is a thing of my generation. It says here, somebody says, I love your site. I said, name that trauma. Here's a movie that haunted my childhood. I can totally relate. I'm actually not even sure if it was a horror movie, but one scene scared the pants off the younger me. Ditto. I want to say it was a made-for-TV movie. And they're on the mid to late 70s. I think so. I think 77, 78. As I remember seeing it more than a few times, and always during prime time. I don't remember that. I remember seeing it in the afternoon. It involved 2 brothers, both around 8 to 11 years old. One was mute, or maybe retarded. Or again, here we go with their PC, not PC words anymore. But yeah, I don't know if he was retarded per se or special needs, as you're supposed to say nowadays. But I know he didn't talk, so maybe that was the thing. He was mute, so he couldn't articulate why he was, had an issue with this doll. But it says, I know something was wrong with him mentally. The other brother, the normal one, he says, loved Spider-Man. The room was decorated with Spider-Man posters and toys, in particular a Mego Spider-Man. Now here's the thing. I could have sworn it was the 12-inch doll that they used for this movie, but now seeing the picture of it and seeing the picture of it toasted, it's the 8-inch doll. Maybe just because I had the 12-inch doll at the time, I just mentally thought in my head, oh, it must be the 12-inch doll. I just thought it looked bigger. That or their oven is really small. Their oven looks really weird too if you see it. The other in particular, Mego Spider-Man, the mentally challenged, okay, there we go, brother was frightened of Spider-Man. Yeah, he was scared to death of it. So much so that he took his brother's Mego Spider-Man and cooked it in the oven. The smoke alarm went off and the mother ran to the stove. When they pulled out the horribly charred Spider-Man figure from the oven, the normal brother freaked out, screaming, and the Mego Spider-Man, it was so disgusting and burnt. That image scarred the webbing out of me, ha ha ha, as a kid. Does anybody know this movie? I do all too well. It's been driving me nuts for over 30 years. Okay, so the movie is called And Your Name is Jonah. It was a made-for-TV. Let's see, it says here, the movie is called And Your Name is Jonah, 1979. That's interesting. The year Dynasty came out. So I did see it 79. That was like 77, but a TV movie starring Sally Struthers. I remember Sally Struthers was the mother and James Woods the dad. I remember that. Don't feel bad about not remembering what Jonah's issue was. His parents had a hard time figuring out as well. Although diagnosed as mentally challenged, we find out through the course of the movie that Jonah is actually deaf. That's right. I also noticed that in the IMDb message board that you're not alone in having the strong memory of Spider-Man burning incident. And Your Name, Jonah, on DVD can be watched over at Amazon. Oh, it's interesting. Hulu or Netflix streaming. Oh, it's on Netflix? Huh. I don't know. Well, I don't know when this is. Might not be on it now. Thanks for coming to us from Bubba. So I blew up the picture. Oh, there it is. I blew up the pictures just so you can see them better. So again, remember what I was saying? This right here is exactly how I spent a lot of my time. We had a very similar, not the same one, but a very similar TV stand, almost, and that was a black and white TV, I think. It looks black and white. We did have a black and white TV that looked like that. We also had a our color television looked a lot like that. It looks like this little marble-headed me sitting there watching this movie, sitting on the carpet. Although we didn't have fancy hardwood floors in this big rug. Or look at all this fancy stuff in here. But anyways, you can see the crazy brother in here. He's like, I'm gonna kill your figure. Or was this the kid? And then I can't remember. But anyways, this is the movie. And then the kid puts in Spider-Man, the Mego doll, puts him in this weird oven. It's actually not the oven, it's the broiler. But look at like the stone, like jagged stone. What kind of oven is this? Is that a broiler? Because usually that broil pan. I used to always think the bottom tray was just for putting your pots and pans, but maybe that's a broiler tray. I'm not sure. And then of course look at that. It's so disgusting. It's like what is that? When they is that maybe they took the figure and melted the plastic? They took the clothes off of him and then melted him down. He's got this like an entrail, like an organ, like an intestine coming out of him. Where his head was at, just a ball of fire. It's burning the white stove. You got this floral mitt. This is when the mom opens up and she finds it in there. Like, I swear to God, that scene, it was traumatizing, if not more traumatizing than any horror movie of the time. It just freaked me out. Obviously freaked out a lot of people, but That was a Spider-Man incident that I had back in the 70s. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to something more fun. Let's go. Pause for a second. I'm going to bring up this. So, I forgot to mention this in the Batman video, but I had the Bat Machine. I can't believe how it's $20 back then. So I had the Bat Machine. I never had this thing. This thing's crazy. Only rich kids had this thing. But this thing, the Bat Machine, I loved this thing. I begged for this thing. And the thing was, the neighbor kid had the Green Machine, if you remember the Green Machine. And I was like, Dad, I want the Green Machine. It's so cool. Because it wasn't a big wheel. This is so much cooler than a big wheel. Do that power slide, hit that sand right about the driveway, and then do this power slide coming down the driveway. Usually spin into the street. So, this is the Bat Machine, and I wanted the Bat Machine instead. And I remember one day vividly. It was summer, and I want to say this is probably summer of 70... It had to have been summer of 7... It could have been 79. I think it might have been 79. Because that neighbor kid still lived... He moved away, but I think he still lived there with the Green Machine. It could have been 78, but regardless, it was one of those 2 years. Because we lived in Winry, the new house. I was coming home, I think I was coming home from school, or maybe it was summertime, school's out, I'm not sure exactly. I remember coming home, and the delivery person, because my dad ordered it from Sears, and, normally I had to go pick the stuff up, but they had delivery service, and they had delivered this box, and the funny thing was, they just set it in the driveway, like up against here's the garage, and the house is here, go up the driveway. There's the garage, single-car garage. They basically just set it plunk right down in the middle of the driveway in front of the garage door. And we pulled up on it, and I'm like, yeah, what's that? And the thing is, it was a big box, and I couldn't see it at first, like, couldn't read it exactly. And we had just gotten, because we just moved in the house, I think we got a new refrigerator. And I remember going out in the backyard and playing in the box and rolling it around the whole backyard in this refrigerator box. I thought it was another appliance. And my dad's like going, oh... he says, it came, and I go, what? And then I looked at the box, and I see the Batman symbol, and then I see a little picture of it on the box. And I'm like, oh, it's the Bat Machine. I am surprised. My dad was not mechanically inclined at all. I am surprised he actually put this thing together, and it worked. Because my dad, like I said, my dad could not put anything together. But maybe my mom helped, or maybe my sister helped, I'm not sure, but we got this thing together, and I thought I was the shit. I was just parading up down on the sidewalk, and with my Bat Machine, went over to the kid with the Green Machine and said, hey, check out my ride. I wasn't that cool, but I was just like, hey, look at my God! And then, and away we went. It broke, and then it finally went down. It got taken out. The first time it broke was, you see those metal rods back there? They were just kind of like, it was goofy. It's like you put the rod through the hole. Instead of like a screw or a bolt or something, you take this like cap, you put it on there, and you take a hammer, and you just bang the shit out of it until the cap snaps. It has like these little indents, and it would catch it, and that's what would hold it together. Really chintzy. So I remember doing a crazy power slide out in the street one day. I was out riding in the street. And that whole, right next to the curb was just filled with sand and cigarette butts. And I just come flying around, and I spun, and I hit the wheel right into the curb. Bang! Broke one of those bars right off. Well, the neighbor ended up fixing it for me, and got it back and running again, so I was back in the business. I ditched the flag. For some reason, the flag bothered me. I got rid of the flag. But then, it got taken out. It's my fault, but I blamed it on my dad. I parked the thing right in the sidewalk, right in front of the driveway. Or right in the driveway, like the sidewalk would intersect the driveway as it comes up to the street. And my dad had the AMC Eagle at the time, and he was backing that puppy out, and all of a sudden you hear this, and my dad's like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, I just went white. Oh no. And I get out, and there it was. He just destroyed the Bat Machine by running it over with the car. Or not really running it over, kind of just dragging it along until pieces started just breaking. Like the whole back end was ripped off of it. I mean, it wasn't salvageable. And I was like, my Bat Machine! Ah! Luckily I got a bike not that far after that. But anyways, because like I said, I was 79, 78, kindergarten, first grade. Most kids are starting to ride bikes. I couldn't ride a bike yet, so I wanted to ride this thing. So here's my Bat Machine story. So I said, and we'll also talk about other thing I forgot to mention as a kid was the utility belt sets. But this ties in to, well, let's do it now. So Batman, again, this is Remco and Mego doing label swapping. Now, obviously, they have a Batman symbol here on this belt, so this was made specifically. And these things, I think, was like I think you put over your eyes or something. I can't remember. And they had like these walkie-talkies where you put the little rubber tube, plastic tube, to the other walkie-talkie. When you talked, your voice would carry through the tube to the other one. But the thing was, they had a Spider-Man utility set. Since we're talking about Spider-Man. And the goofy thing was, you had this little Spider-Man net that you would throw at things. You had Spider-Man handcuffs, because he needed handcuffs, with string on the end of it. And he had a utility belt, which, although put a pin in Spider-Man's utility belt. And then he had this walkie-talkie, and he had a watch, because Spider-Man needs to know what time it is. What was weird it didn't come with was one of the quintessential Spider-Man rack toys to have. This is as much as the Batmobile, Batboat rack toy, or the parachuting Spider-Man, as you can see, I'll show you that in a second. Spider-Man, the quintessential Spider-Man rack toy to have was, of course, what? The web shooter. And it went around your wrist, and it had a dart, because remember the dart guns? Little spring-loaded dart guns were huge back then. They were in all those rack toys. It was a dart that you loaded into it, and it had a string on the end of it, right? And when you did the twist, you shot the Spider-Man thing. Actually, it was this on here, and you just went like this. It wasn't cool like that, like activated like a real Spider-Man thing. You didn't do the twist. It just went on top of your wrist, and you fired it. The dart would fire, and the cord, of course, would weigh it down, so the darters go. But to you, if you get really close, like the refrigerator, like this close one, and it shot and touched the refrigerator, I'm Spider-Man, I just got him in the refrigerator. And then you'd pull the string out, and you'd be running back and forth with the string attached to the refrigerator. You go like going, I'm swinging through the kitchen. Then your mom would walk in, your dad would walk in and go, what are you doing? They had many different packaging. This is just one of the ones I found. This one I think had like a web book. I don't know what it was. It just like this. I don't think this one had the cord. I think this one had like a plastic web thing that would shoot out with the dart. Mine had the cord. They also, like again, this is label swapping again. They would also take these, and they had like a Batman version, which was the grappling gun. They had a Hulk web shooter, because the Hulk needed to shoot webs too. I think Hulk also had I didn't look it up, but Hulk also had a utility belt, because the Hulk, he needs a walkie-talkie and a watch to know what time it is. But anyways, and then following, of course, suit is the Fly 'em High, the Spider-Man version of the same thing of the Batman. I just loved those as a kid. Those things are so cool to me. They were made of a really weird they're like heavy plastic, but light at the same time. Doesn't make any sense, because they had to weight down for the thing. I remember just knocking it against my teeth all the time. I had this weird, like I said, I'm a weird kid. And of course, they also followed suit. They had a Spider-Man motorcycle, because it's the 70s, and it was all about motorcycles, all the choppers and all the 70s rides and everything was all about that back in the day. And the neighbor had the chopper, and I was obsessed with motorcycles as a kid. You have to put it's the 70s, you put cards and stuff and put things in your bike tire, so when you go, it sounds like either it sounds like you're shitting your pants, or it sounds like a motorcycle. And then they'd have and then they came out that I'll have to do one on some of those other toys. They came out with that handle grip thing that you put on the bike. They did have a spider car. I did have one spider car. I had this one, which was one of those when you pull the little thing back and then let it go, and energized power, and it would take off. I did have a spider car. I don't think I had a spider car corgi toy, but we'll get to the corgi toys in a minute. Let's finish up with... So, here's the thing, though. When it comes to comic books, obviously Spider-Man's a comic book character. Started in the 60s, you know, the Marvel Age, the beginning of the Marvel Age. All the Spider-Man stuff, right? The last thing I really wanted was a comic book. It was like the last thing I was like, comic book? It's so much like today, how it's like you've got Spider-Man, or you got superhero comics out there, and only a select few actually buy the comics, why they don't sell that many. But people have buy all the MCU stuff, the cartoon stuff, the toys, all the merchandising, but nobody really buys the comic book. So I don't know if it was your parents or maybe even the publishers like Marvel thought to themselves, you know, the only way to get a kid to read a comic is make it big. Kid doesn't want to read this little book, but you make a big book, kids will read it, right? And by the way, the one media replay, it's $12. I don't know if I want to get it, but they have the Battlestar Galactica Marvel Treasury Edition. But anyways, so they had the Spider-Man Marvel Treasury Editions, which were the big, oversized comics. They're also called oversized comics, I think, too. I think the Treasury Edition and oversized comics were slightly different. Like, I think the Treasury Edition's more magazine size, but big, and then the oversized one was, like, done to size, you know, like 11 by 17, or whatever the sizing was. But that was the only comic book I really had. And they had, I mean, this like I said, before 1984, when I really got into comics, this is the type of stuff that I had. I had the Star Wars. I take it back. I did have a few of the Star Wars smaller ones, but I had the Star Wars oversized edition, the special edition. I don't think I had the Fantastic Four ones. I had the Battlestar Galactica. I did have, I think it was a Spider-Man. I may have had a Fantastic Four one. But I don't think I did. So, yeah. So as far as the media, though, outside of the cartoon, in the 70s there was two other ways to digest Spider-Man in the media. One of them, of course, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but the show Electric Company. It always used to come on after Sesame Street. They'd have Electric Company. It was like this kind of, you know, like a educational kids show kind of thing, variety show, kind of like Hot Fudge, right on, woo, kind of like Hot Fudge. It was called Electric Company, and they had, like, I couldn't find the picture, but when all the cast's all waving at the camera at the end of the opening, back in the background, hey, Spider-Man! You'd see Spider-Man waving at you, hey! And then they do a Spider-Man segment in almost every episode, and this was the Spider-Man segment they'd do. And then this crazy guy. But yeah, so it's like, holy shit! There's Spider-Man! And he's moving, he's live action, he's real Spider-Man! That's how you were as a kid, right? You were just like, you know, you're pooping yourself when you saw Spider-Man move on TV. That wasn't a cartoon. And then, of course, we were treated to, towards the end of the 70s, with the Spider-Man TV show. Remember the utility belt? Well, there it is. That's why Spider-Man needs he needs a watch, too, to tell what time it is. But this was the TV show with this guy. Okay, now remember what I was saying. That was Peter Parker. That guy is probably 32 years old, or maybe 28. That guy, he's an actor. I think he played Captain America once, too, as well. You probably saw him. He always played like bit parts in like Chips and Wonder Woman and Hardy Boys. But I can't remember the actor's name is. But he was probably almost 30 back in the day, and he's playing Spider-Man. That's what I'm saying. Between the cartoon, between the Spider-Man, is clearly an adult in Electric Company, because these are kids, right? I mean, sure, they're not high school kids. These are probably junior high kids. Or maybe she's a high school kid. I'm saying these are kids, right? That's Spider-Man. He's clearly an adult. He's like taking on the teacher role, right? So, and here we go. I mean, that's clearly an adult back there. And again, you had the TV show, which didn't last very long, and it was not good. I mean, it was not, trust me, it was not good. I loved it as a kid, but it was not good. There he is on the roof of the building. Here we go. Here we go. Here, obviously in front of a green screen or matte paint, or probably a green screen or whatever. Not really in New York, but they have pictures of New York in the background. I don't think he just climbs, because they do the climbing thing. They'd get a stunt guy, you know, to get on a harness, and they just lift him up with the thing, and he just like flap his arms and legs and look like he's climbing up the side of a building. And of course, the buildings he always climbed were not skyscrapers. The buildings he always climbed up were like schools, or like 2-story, 3-story buildings, you know, to get to the roof. And that was their gimmick, was they could make him look like he's climbing, right? And then he had his utility belt, because, you know, he might need that. Anyways, yeah, they never showed him swinging around on what do you call it? And I think he used to, I don't know if it was the electric company did this or the TV. I think it was the electric company, but he would shoot the webbing on the bad guys, and he'd cover web, and then he'd leave a sign, you know, thanks to your friendly welcome, you know, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, for the cops. So another thing, of course, big was in the 70s, was, I didn't blow the picture up, was the Underoos. I had the Spider-Man Underoos for the longest time. I lost the draws. I lost my draws. I lost the draws to it. But I had the T-shirt forever, and I used to wear the T-shirt to school all the time, and all the kids would make fun of me. They go, "Hey, it's an Underoos shirt." Yeah, it's T-shirt. What's the difference between an Underoos T-shirt and a Star Wars, you know, Iron-On T-shirt? Because that was big in the day. I think these were Iron-Ons, or some similar. But yeah, I mean, the kids have said, it's just a T-shirt. I'm not. Oh, you got the underwear on too? I might. What does it matter? But kids are so obsessed with, you know, what do you call it, flexing, as my son would say, or dogging on other kids and making other kids look bad to climb the elementary school hierarchy, that you know, they would rip on the kids for. But I love that shirt. I always loved that shirt. I wore that shirt forever. And of course, there was the package of the Underoos. I only had a couple of pairs of Underoos. I had the Spider-Man ones. I had the Aquaman set. There's a Polaroid of me, real creepy picture like this kid running around in my Underoos. I got on Christmas Eve. I got Underoos for Christmas Eve. I'm gonna go put them on and run around my underwear for the rest of Christmas Eve. But anyways, yeah. So Underoos were a big thing back then. The other thing, of course, but here's the thing. They came out with this, and I had it, and of course, somebody stole it, and I was still in kindergarten. Was it in kindergarten, or was it in first grade? I think I was in first grade. I had this, and you know, out in the hallway, you'd have like all where the coat hangers are and stuff, where you put your coats and your boots and everything, and your hats and gloves, and then you go into the classrooms, right? So I had the Spider-Man ski mask. It definitely looks like something you would you'd put on your head and go down to 7-Eleven in a big city, get a cup of coffee. But anyways, the Spider-Man B&E mask, I'm going to call it. It's the breaking and entering mask. That was a thing, and I was like, oh, I have to have that. And I remember getting it, and then I left it up with my coat on top of the thing, and some kid came along and stole it, and I never saw it again. Because he wasn't going to bring it back to school. He took that shit and ran. He's never going to come back with that. I don't know who took it. I don't even have a clue. I couldn't even think of a suspect as a kid. I think it was a kid from another class saw it and stole it from me. Of course, they did have a Hulk, because Hulk needs to stay warm too in the winter. But that Spider-Man mask, I was like, I saw that. That might not be the same. This is definitely the one, because this was from a catalog. It had more of the tips on it. But this mask, if you paired this mask with the other thing that I had back in the day, if I can find them, where are they at? Did the picture not come through? Oh, for Christ's sake, where is it? Alright, well, take my word for it. I had a pair of Jimmer Jams. I thought I saved the Spider-Man Jimmy Jams. So I had Jimmy Jams that had like the blue pants and then the long sleeve Spider-Man shirt, which is essentially Spider-Man's costume. So if you wore the Jimmy Jams Andy wore the... Oh, there, right there. All right, so I had the Jimmy Jams. Those actually might be newer Jimmy Jams. Those look... maybe they're the old ones. Yeah, I remember the legs almost look like spats. But, yeah, I would wear these around the house, and I'd go out in the yard, and I'd go down to my friend's house, and my friend would go, "Oh no, here comes Tim. He's got it's in the middle of the day, and he's got his jammies on." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm going to be Spider-Man. We're going to play Spider-Man." I had the ski. It's in the middle of the summer, you know, I'm sweating bullets in this thing. It's like, yeah, but I want to be Spider-Man with a pair of, you know, kicks, you know, or some Buster Brown shoes at the bottom. Totally didn't match. But anyways, you know, the kid down the street, he'd get so mad at me when I come down to his house wearing pajamas in the middle of the day. He got so embarrassed. He's like, "Oh no, Tim's here. He's got his pajamas on. Tell him to go home and change. I don't want to play with him. He's got his pajamas on." I didn't understand that. What am I going to do? I'm going to get the jammies all over you? I'm going to ruin your street cred in the block because you're playing with the lunatic kid down the street wearing his Spider-Man jammies? I want to be Spider-Man when we play. And I got his costume on. It seems like a no-brainer to me. But apparently kids have issues. So, yeah, that was that. Where are we at? What do we not hit up yet here? Oh, I found this too. So, the likelihood of my grandmother telling the truth about having the Batman Bend-Ems may be correct. She may have got them, because she used to go to her store, McKay-Mart's. Gotta go to McKay-Mart's. But they did have, Mego did put out Bend-Ems, or Bendies, or whatever they call them. And now that I see them, they kind of ring a bell. I think I remember the Joker Bendy, or the Riddler Bendy. But they did have a Batman and Robin, so there's a good chance that my grandmother was not lying, but I don't know what she did with them. Never found them. But speaking of Kmart, I like this picture because it matches. It not only it's not very big, but it matches everything. And the reason I say that is this looks so much like the Kmart in Rochester on the top of the hill on Avon in Rochester. I don't think it's the same one, but it's so close. And being on the top of the hill, too, meant when you looked up, I mean, you just saw blue sky like this. You didn't see a bunch of other buildings, so it wasn't like in a crowded area because it was on top of the hill. Because it went down a big hill in Avon on the other side of this. But here's the thing I forgot about this, because the Kmart had been there for a long, long time, and they rebranded it with the new sign. Now, this is the original Kmart sign that was back there. But I remember when we'd walk up, they used to have in the front, they had the little horse carousel. And I think they had like a horse thing, you know, they put like a penny in it and it would go. That was such a treat as a kid. And you're like, "Oh, Mom, I want to go on the horse carousel before we go." We'd either go before we go in or we go on the way out. But I loved riding on the horse carousel. I used to be outside of Kmart all the time. They pulled that out like probably in like by 80. I think it was gone, but definitely in the 70s that was a thing. And I used to love going on the horse carousel. But that looks a lot like our Kmart, so much like our Kmart. But that was the thing back in the day, Kmart's. I'm going to do a video alone on Kmart's, because Kmart and Kresge's, those two stores, that was Kmart. You probably remember Kmart vaguely, but Kmart and Sears and Kresge's, I mean, those stores think about nowadays, you have Walmart and Target, pretty much, right? And to some degree Meijer and stuff, depending where you live. But you have Walmart and you have Target. Those are your two main department stores like this, or whatever you call it. And, you know, but back in the day it was Kmart, and a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about here was purchased at Kmart or Kresge's. They used to have a huge toy department, and the thing is, I want to go into Kmart because I want to talk about the Kmart restaurant or the grill that would be in there and all that other stuff. So we'll save that for the Kmart video, but let's just touch on that here. My grandma's favorite store. Love my Kmart's. Got to go up to my Kmart's. Grandma, it's not Kmart's. It's Kmart. I'm driving for the Fords. Fords. It's not Fords. It's Ford. I just loved it. Love having dumb hillbilly grandparents. Them Kmart's and them Fords. Anyways, what do we have here? So, another thing, of course, Spider-Man related. I got it for Easter, and I think I got it in Easter of It had to have been Easter of '79 because we moved into the. We got it in Winry. We moved into Winry in the like spring summer-ish of 1978. So this would have been '79 Easter, just after the Christmas. I got the Energized Spider-Man. I don't know if you remember the Energized Spider-Man, but that was such a cool thing as a kid. He was in a fixed position. He was always like this, and he had like a. So we had like a like almost like fishing line. He had a clamp, as you can see. You take the C clamp, and you'd tie it to, you'd clamp it down to something, and you'd run the line with the hook onto his hand. And when he flipped the switch, you just press a little button on his belt. It would activate the motor, and he would go up. And then zzz, you pulled him back down. He would go up. That was the coolest thing. I think, yeah, he did have a flashlight you could plug into the one side of his belt, and you could power the flashlight. He could see, because flashlights were big in the 70s. You needed to see in the 70s. Every superhero, including the Hulk, needed a flashlight. But they did have a I never had him, but they did have a Batman, Energized Batman. I barely remember even seeing this one. And I did really want the green, I never got him. I wanted the Green Goblin, and I also wanted the Spider-Copter, which was cool. So you took the Energized Spider-Man and you attached him to here, and then you hooked that little, it was almost like a little USB port, which is a little power port. You hook that in, and his motor inside of him would power the blade. And of course it wasn't a blade, they'd have a ring around it so you didn't get your finger, whacked when you spun it. But that was the thing. And so I wanted the copter, never got the copter. I just had Amazing Spider-Man, got him for Easter in '79. Wanted the Green Goblin. I was aware of the Batman, but never got him. Like I said, that was pretty much across the board from all these different companies. You'd get Spider-Man, Batman. I think they had a Superman too. I actually think they had a Hulk. They might have had. I think they might have had a Wonder Woman. I can't remember if they had all those people, but I found these ones. So here was another thing. This took a while to find because it had to have the name, and I couldn't remember the name. You guys remember the Jointed Giants? And there's not that kind of Jointed Giant, but we had. Let me check the time. Oh, we're coming up on an hour here. So we had. You remember like the Scout? They still have some today, I think, at like the Joanne Fabrics and stuff. They're the skeletons that have like their cardboard, and then they have little like grommet joints, and you can move them and put them in different poses, and you can use them for decorations on a wall. So they had these, and they had them at Kmart's, and I wanted them so bad. This is one of those things that are just like, I had to have it. I just lost my freaking mind. I wanted this thing so bad. But they had these Jointed Giants, and they had a Batman, which I did have a Batman. I didn't have the Wonder Woman, which in the package looks like something you'd buy at an adult bookstore, actually. It doesn't look like a toy for a kid. something involving a pump to blow this thing up is what it looks like. But anyways, I did have the Spider-Man. I think I had a Superman, but I'm not sure. I know I had Batman, because Batman and Superman were my buddies. But I had the Spider-Man, and oh my god, I wanted this thing so bad. I think, I'm not 100% certain, I think they might have made Star Wars ones. I think they made a Stormtrooper, I think. Or 3CPO, I could just be imagining that. But I know they had, obviously, there's a picture of it right there. So I had this, and I had them on my wall, and I put them in those crazy poses and move them all around. That was a big thing. Here we go. Some color forms. I had the specific color form set. I had the color form set. Here's just here's some of the Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman makes sense. She has her belt, her bracelets, a jump rope, because Wonder Woman, you never know when she needs to jump rope, which I think was supposed to be her golden lasso. And then her tiara. That makes sense. Batman, of course, makes sense. So these Star Trek guns, like the Star Trek phaser, but they also had a bat flashlight phaser. Remember, things were very dark in the 70s. I know we just came out of the Vietnam War, so it was a dark time. So apparently everybody needed flashlights. Sorry, it's a bad joke. But anyways, and then Spider-Man had the Zeep. He had a phaser gun, because again, all of them needed the same stuff. And then when it came to the cars, everybody needed a van, or whatnot. I vaguely remember these. I remember the Bopham bags. I had Bopham bags. This, I don't remember ever them coming out with this. I know they have it, but I mean, I just don't remember seeing this. There's Spidey there, Spidey car. They had these inflatable Hulks that would shake. I think they had a Godzilla one too. I know they had Shogun Warrior versions of this, but so speaking of label slapping though, here was another thing they did. So they had this copter. This was Mego, and they're like, hey, we need to make it a Batman copter, because Batman has a Batcopter. He does, that's true. Spider-Man needs a copter. He does. Hulk needs a copter. Okay. The rescue copter makes sense for rescue. Okay. These two make sense. These don't make sense, because it was label slapping. And that's what they did all the time. And we'll get to the copter in just a second. So the other thing, just like the Batman, I couldn't find a good version of the Batman, but I definitely remember these, was the coloring books. 59 cents. I had so many coloring books, and I told you the coloring book story in the Batman video, but essentially the same thing. Spider-Man's how I learned how to draw Spider-Man. Like literally, how to draw him with all the webbing and stuff, how to draw Doc Ock with all of his octopus tentacles and the lines on it. It all came from just copying stuff out of coloring books. Now, remember I said the Batmobile? I didn't have the pocket comic Pocket Action Heroes version of the Spider car. I'm just showing you that. But I did have Spider-Man, and I had a few of them because I would lose them or break them. So I had Spidey. I had where are the rest of them? All right, Spider-Man. Oh, it's the only. I thought they had the Lizard. They never had the Lizard. They did have a Green Goblin. I had the Green Goblin. They always came with a little orange stand, like the ones that look like they're pooping. They always had the little stand, as the straight leg ones didn't have a stand. A lot of these were purchased 97 cents, purchased exclusively at Kmart's and Kresge's, or the DNC downtown Rochester. So there again, I had the Batcopter. Got to have a Spider Copter. Why not? I had the Spider Copter. I did have this. Remember, I was obsessed with motorcycles. I did have this Corgi Spider Bike. I didn't have this Batman version of this one, but I did have the Spider Bike version of it. It's just easier to find. Sorry, there's your copter again. And then again, motorcycles. They had the same motorcycle with Batman on it. Everybody was on it. I think they had Star Trek ones where the Star Trek guys were riding motorcycles. Like I said, the guys at Remco and the guys at Mego, it's the 70s, and those guys were so coked up and high all the time that they were just like, hey dudes, we just need to make money to keep the hookers and blow coming in. So let's just label slap everything, just make money on these kids. Spider-Man and Hulk ride motorcycles? Why not? As they get smoked, or they get smoked, as they get stoned out of their mind. But I think we covered everything. Oh, no, still got more. Presto Magic. Again, all of this stuff that I'm showing you, almost all of it, translates to Batman, translates to Star Trek, translates to the Incredible Hulk. So I'm not going to, probably won't do a Hulk show. I liked Spider-Man more. I probably won't. Maybe I'll do a Wonder Woman show, because she did have her show, and I was pretty obsessed with. Although I didn't have a lot of Wonder Woman paraphernalia, I was just obsessed with Wonder Woman. I need to do a Muppet show once. There's a lot of stuff from the 70s that I need to do a show on, or do a video on. But yeah, Presto Magic, and I remember this specifically, this Presto Magic. So this is how this worked too. They were like little drawings on transfer sheets, and what you do is they give you like the scene, and then you would just take a pencil. Pencils seem to work. Pens always dug in too much, but if you used a pencil and got it like the side of it a little dull or a little flattened, and used a pencil, you could rub these off, and they would rub off onto the sheet. And then you'd pull it off, and then you'd get everything but like half his arms missing. God damn it! You'd have to try to rub and try to match it up to rub and get his arm on exactly in the same spot. It was like pure nirvana when you would do it and you pull it off, and it's perfect. Speaking of nirvana, the other thing is getting these fucking things to work. Shrinky dinks. my God, these things were the bane of all existence. Is getting Shrinky Dinks to work. Either not burning the shit out of them, like Spider-Man in the oven. Again, why does everything have to be related to the oven in the 70s? There's an episode of, I think, Days of Our Lives, where one woman opens the stove and she catches on fire. That's another... I'm scared to death of... I remember touching an oven as a kid and burning my hand. I stuck my finger in the... You can see there's a scar. As a kid, I have a scar still there from when I stuck my finger in the stove. The blue flame, because I just looked cool. What's that? Ah! Yeah, the stove and kids in the 70s just it seemed like it was I'm still whenever my son, when he was little, I would constantly, the stove's on, the stove is, I repeat again, the stove is on, do not go in the kitchen. And I got very nervous putting the stove on with a young, kid, 2-year-old running around. But yeah, so Shrinky Dinks were like, they're on like plastic, and they give you colored pencils, and they like 3 color, yeah, right, whatever. But if you could use colored pencils on them, they work pretty good. But markers obviously work the best. And when they shrank, the markers actually kind of bled into the cracks and gave more of a glazed look, which was cool. Because the wax on the colored pencil sometimes would melt and like it would streak. But markers would work perfect on it. So you'd color them up, just like a coloring book. You'd cut them out, and then you would put them on a cookie sheet. You put them in the oven. It's, I think, like 300 degrees, and you'd bake them for like 8 minutes or whatever. And when they come out, they would start out about that big, and then they would shrink down. It's called Shrinky Dinks, and they shrink down to these tiny little, like, almost, D&D miniature-sized things. And they were hard plastic at the time, and the colors were kind of fixed. And those are little guys, and you would play with them. Or do whatever, trade them to your friends or whatever. But trying to get them to actually, because they'd crinkle down, and sometimes you'd go to check them, and they'd be like all in a ball. I'm like, what? Or, they'd be just on fire, literally like caught on fire, and they'd just start burning. And you're like, ah! So, and again, another very odd thing to do as a kid. But like I said, all this little, you sit down at the table. I got color, your parents would say, sit down at the table and relax and do something relaxing. So it's just like, okay, well, I'd grab the coloring books, I'd grab the Shrinky Dinks, and then beg them to turn the stove on. And then, of course, then they had to get involved. And they're like, no, do something where you're relaxing. I don't have to pay attention to you. That's why I bought you toys, so I don't have to entertain you. So the Shrinky Dinks usually were like a point of contention. But Presto Magic, Color Form, coloring books, you name that type of stuff. Oh, yeah, I could sit there for all afternoon at the table doing that stuff. And I did. We had the table. I didn't stay on the dining room table. I'd sit at the table in the kitchen a lot and do that. Put on the headphones and listen to some Ace Frehley solo or some rock and roll over on 8-track. I think I've hit every point here, haven't I? Have I missed anything? You see anything here I've missed? I'm asking you like you could tell me. I think we've touched everything. So that's all the Spider-Man 80s stuff, and of course a little bit of an amendment to the Batman stuff that I forgot. I definitely want to do a Star Trek episode. I definitely want to do a Kmart episode. I've got now that I'm kind of in this frame of mind, I've got some ideas for doing some more videos and kind of telling you about this stuff. Because like I said, I could talk for hours, which I apparently am, about all this stuff. But, man, it was such a great time. I'm telling you, the 80s are cool, and everybody loves talking about the 80s, and there's the 80s music, and the 80s nostalgia, and MTV, and blah, blah, blah. However, I gotta say the 70s, for me, I felt, because my parents were married at the time, and I had a normal life, sort of, it was just more fun, but just the amount of just junk. Like I said, not only you get like this stuff when you go to the store, and your parents would spend $1 or $2 to get you to shut up. But your parents would also, your stockings would be filled with a bunch of the stuff. You'd have Shrinky Dinks and Presto Magic in your stockings. You'd have the rack toys in your stockings. Grandma would always buy you, go to the grocery store with Grandma, Timmy, and she'd always buy you some stuff. My dad's grandparents, all of times I hung out with them or went to the store with them, I could count on one hand, missing 2 fingers. They ended up buying me this stuff. But yeah, I just loved all this stuff. And like I said, the dolls are so awesome. Everything was just awesome back then. You had the Bat Machine. Sorry. I've definitely gone over an hour and 10 minutes. Alright, so we'll stop the video. So, yeah. We'll keep going on this stuff. Tell me of your experiences. Tell me if you had any of this stuff. Tell me your experiences about it. I'd love to hear it. Did you get traumatized by that movie with the burnt Spider-Man? Let me know. What were the stores? Did you go to Kmart all the time? Or are there other stores, different states, different countries, maybe even? The UK. What did you guys have in the UK? You didn't have Kmarts. I can't imagine British people pronounce. Do British people pronounce things wrong? Like dumb hillbillies from America, like that live in Kentucky. Do they say like Kmarts and Fords? Did they say that? Did old people? Idiots in UK. I just can't. For some reason, I can't imagine UK hillbillies. I don't know. I know they exist probably, but I just can't imagine them. But anyways, that's the way it was back then. Like I said, everybody smoked, everybody drank while they're driving. It was the 70s. It was fun. But all right. I'll let you go here. Remember, like and subscribe, do all that jazz, comment up the yin-yang, tell me about stuff, send me links, the whole 9 yards. Let's keep this conversation, this dialogue going about the stuff. I know we did a lot of 1984 stuff. Now I'm on a 70s kick. And you know me, I'm going to be on a kick. When I get on a kick, I get on a kick. And then I just go nuts about it. And then I forget about it a week, 2 weeks later, and then I'm on to something else, right? The ADD is just kicking into high overdrive. But anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one, and take care. Bye-bye.